Hey guys, what's up? This is Mel, and I'm here to talk about Shadowhunters, episode 215, titled A Problem of Memory, which premiered Monday, July 10th, 2017 on Freeform, and then on the 11th on Netflix, but I am recording on the 14th, so it's been a few days since I've seen the episode on Netflix, so huge spoiler alert, guys. If you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first, then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. Otherwise, my other reminders are up on screen right now. Take a moment to remind yourselves, although this episode was a pretty big mile marker, I would have to say. So let's start the 10-minute clock and let's jump right into what happened in this episode. So timeline-wise, I believe it's the next day after the events of 214. Although it's possible it could have been a few days. Alec does make the comment about the episode starting on the fourth morning that he has woken up in a row to Magnus not being there and kind of not getting a good night's sleep. So I don't know if that's 4 days since the events of 214 or if it's just so happens it's been just 4 days. And the events of 214 happened within those 4 days. So it's either the next day after 214 or it's 4 days after the events of 214. But also the breakup between, or the reason why I'm thinking it's the next day is because of how raw the fallout of Clary and Simon still is. So there's that. And moving on to the episode reminder, though, is the fact that, well, I'm remembering it as Sebastian's true identity fully being revealed in this episode. No hints, no little clues. You fully know who he is by the end of the episode. So there's that. Moving on to the first moments of the episode, I have to say it's seeing a heartbroken Simon having a few blood drinks with a vampire named Quinn, who then Daniel Quinn, who introduces him to what is a bleeder den. And we find out that vampires actually get drunk off of plasma shots, I guess you can say. So there's that. Now, episode breakdown for storylines, I'd say I picked up on 3 different ones. First one being Simon's belief that he killed a mundane and trying to figure out if it's true or not. Second one is Valentine's transport to Idris, which was Alec's latest call at the end of the previous episode. And then the third one being Magnus's memories coming back to him. So there's that. So with the first story line, we get Simon dealing with Clary, especially with what happened in the Sealy court and coming to realize that he can't be with her anymore. Well, by the end of all of it, he tells her he can't be with her anymore, but he's still going to keep his word about being friends. And he just needs time and some space in order to bring himself to that. So throughout this whole thing, Simon is brought to what is called the Bleeder Den. It's pretty much a strip club where the entertainment are people who are more addicted to vampire venom than vampires are addicted to blood, in a sense. From that, though, Simon ends up feeding off a girl who ends up being found dead. So Simon is accused of killing her, but it ends up being Daniel Quinn. So then Simon has a face-off with said vampire, and Simon reigns victorious in that matter. Second storyline, though, is Valentine's transport. Now, Isabel is tasked to lead this mission, and she recruits Jace to kind of help her along through it. Jace has the honor of de-runing Valentine from his circle rune. It either fully removes the rune from his body or it just deactivates the power behind the rune. But Idris, with the new wards around Idris, they won't allow anyone with the circle rune on him. So there's that. Also, Duncan, one of the Shadowhunters we've seen a few times, and maybe get a name drop here and there. He's been seen guarding Valentine's cell. Well, he kind of brings out chaos because instead of taking Valentine to Idris with the rest of Isabel's team, Duncan takes him to Sebastian as ordered, as Duncan's family is being under threat, I guess you could say. And it doesn't end well for Duncan, so I'll leave it at that. Now, this third storyline deals with Magnus, and we see Alec growing worried for Magnus as he's become more withdrawn and not being his usual cheery self. Eventually, Magnus confesses that after being forced under the torture of the agony rune, his worst memory, he's been left to relive it when he spent centuries suppressing it and forgetting it. And the worst memory is that right after his mom's suicide, as a young boy, Magnus ended up killing his stepfather after being called and accused of killing his mom, or being the reason why her mom was killed. So there was that. Now, last moment of the episode shows Sebastian revealing himself to Valentine as his demon-blooded son, Jonathan, and he's not, and he's kind of, well, Jonathan's true face, I guess you could say, is a very burnt version of him. So there's that, and I'll leave it there. But moving on to characters, so we find out that Sebastian Verlac is actually, there is actually a Sebastian Verlac. It's not some alias that Jonathan has taken over. He kidnapped the real Sebastian, locked him up in the closet, and took on his face and identity, and has been impersonating him for all these months. And this has come out when Sebastian's cousin Eileen comes to visit, and she's actually good friends with Isabel and Alec. So Eileen is Sebastian's cousin, and they also mention his Aunt Elodie. We don't see her though, but we do have mentions, and she does. Eileen goes back to either Alicante or to Idris to go check up on Aunt Elodie, who's beside herself from Sebastian's going AWOL. So there's that. Now Duncan, as I mentioned before, he's forced to smuggle Valentine to Sebastian, aka Jonathan. When his family is being threatened, he is later killed by Jonathan, despite fulfilling his end of the deal. Also, we see Ollie again. She ends up arresting Simon, only to get her memories wiped by Raphael when she gets too close to the shadow world. And this was done by Luke's orders. Also, we are introduced to the vampire of Daniel Quinn. He doesn't really last long, but I'm left wondering if he's the same vampire who appeared in previous episodes, wanting to join Simon's nest because he's the daylighter. So there's that. Also, in Idris, we are introduced very briefly to a new character. Isabel names him as Council Diode. I don't know how to say it, but he's the older gentleman in Lard, asking where the angel is Valentine the whole time when they're trying to figure out what the hell happened. So there's that. Now, runes, we actually did either mention a few or there's referencing to a few. So for one, when we see Sebastian revealing himself to be Jonathan, and Jonathan's actual face is this very burnt version of it, meaning the Will Tudor is actually the face of the real Sebastian Verlac. So I'm assuming that that means that Jonathan has been under a glamour rune. We know such a thing does exist because Jace did the same thing with Simon to prove that it's all about your way you hold yourself when it comes to getting a date. So we do know that rune exists. So I'm wondering if that's the exact same rune that Jonathan has been using this whole time. So that's one. We also get mentions of the Agony rune again from Magnus when he explains once again that it's a rune that forces him to relive his worst memory. We also get mentions of the Circle rune. We don't actually know if it's a rune that actually does anything, if it gives any power or does any sort of ability, aside from the fact that it marks people as part of Valentine's circle. So there's that. And also we saw a rune carved into Valentine's chains. Don't know specifically what that rune is for. I'm assuming it's some type of suppression rune or a dampener rune of some sort, but or a locking rune even, but there was that one as well. So moving on to tidbits though, the evil Sebastian, aka Jonathan, he kills both Duncan and the real Sebastian in this episode. Both of them taking his sword and stabbing them in the torso. Duncan through the front, Sebastian through the back. So there's that. We also see Jace seeming to have embraced his feelings for Clary after what happened in the Sealy Court and wanting to talk about them, even though Isabel tells him to just back off in respect of Clary and Simon, to have them work it out first. Also, we still see Raphael still wanting to have answers as to how Simon became a daylighter. But despite Simon's fallout with Clary, he still protects Jace in that regard. Another thing is that we see Valentine telling Jace a little bit more about why his mother, Celine, would go to Valentine when she was pregnant, claiming that she feared miscarrying the baby. So Valentine gave her the injections to make her stronger. Also, we find out a little fun tidbit in the fact that Simon has an anti-foot fetish since he was a kid, and he seems to prefer O-negative blood. So there's that. Now moving on to the most shocking moment of the episode, I think I will have to say the fact was that Will Tudor is the face of the real Sebastian Verlac, which I was right in my prediction that I made in the previous video. So there's that, the actual real Jonathan Christopher Valentine's son. He apparently has a charred face, as I've mentioned many times already. But now it begs the question, will Tudor continue to still keep the face as Sebastian and continue portraying Jonathan? And there's a timer, or are we going to get someone new to play Jonathan in the guise of his real face? So there's that. Also, another shocking thing is the fact that Jonathan killed the real Sebastian as well as Duncan in this episode. You really get the full violent attitude towards him, I guess you can say. So there's that. Moving on, though, to top 3 favorite moments. I definitely have to say the fight between Simon and Quinn was awesome. It was finally great to see what a vampire versus vampire fight would be like. Usually it's the Shadowhunters that are actually in the thick of things. We've seen Magnus having his own little warlock fights a few times, so it was great to see a vampire versus vampire type of fight, and great to see how Simon was able to come out on top for that. So there's that. Another favorite of mine has to be Alex's concern for Magnus. I love it, not only the fact of how it shows how these two work together, but it just, to me, it seems to show how far Alec has come from a guy who didn't know anything about relationships in the very beginning, or how he was so closed off. It's just, he's really opening up with Magnus, and I'm really liking that, and the fact that he even brought Magnus's earlier advice back onto Magnus, saying, "Don't shut me out." It was really great, and then to have Magnus open up, it was a great step for them, for sure, despite the fact that Magnus is going through this tough time. At least Alec is there with him to kind of help him along. Now, another favorite of mine, probably going to have mixed feelings about this, though, but it was actually Sebastian's walk with Eileen, or Jonathan's walk with Eileen as he pretended to be Sebastian. Now, although he was being manipulative of her, what I really liked was his explanation as to why he left, or why he made Sebastian leave, type of thing. It's the explanation of one being expected to live one way, yet actually living the complete opposite. I thought that whole speech was fantastic if you ignore the manipulative aspects behind it. I thought it was really great. It's really connecting in a way. Everyone on any level could connect to that aspect, always having forced to live up to a certain expectation, yet feeling like you're living the complete opposite, or you're not living up to that expectation. We saw that a lot with Isabel, with her mom. We saw a lot of that with Jace, struggling with who he is and which family he actually belongs to. So it was very interesting to hear it in the way that Sebastian had put it, or I'm going to say Jonathan. It's getting confusing trying to figure out what to call him now that we know who he is. Very interesting to see how Jonathan puts it. So there's that. And then another thing I liked about this episode was Simon going to Raphael for help when he couldn't figure out whether or not he actually killed the girl or not. And then just being in this blackout that he was trying to figure out. What I really liked about it was that Raphael was willing to help Simon, even after telling him that he wasn't going to, because he wouldn't reveal what the Daylighter secret was. And yet Raphael still went out and figured out if Simon was the real killer, and being there to back him up. It was great to see Raphael still having Simon's back. And then it was also great to see Simon not rat Jace out for the reason why he turned into a Daylighter, especially with what's going on with Clary, since for all intents and purposes, Simon could easily have a grudge against both Clary and Jace for the kiss done in the Seelie Court. I mean, it's takes two to do the deed, and Simon could have easily taken revenge on Jace and ratted him out to Raphael, but he didn't. He stuck to his word, and I really liked that. So it was great to see that unfold. Moving on to top 3 peed moments. I only have the one, and I'll keep it short. And it was the fact that Ollie got her foot where she didn't need to go. She didn't need to step into it. And then Simon just did not need that. But it was great to see that he was able to escape her. And the fact that Raphael and Luke were able to just nip that in the butt. Too bad they don't know about her werewolf photo. So there is that. But moving on to what moment will I remember most when I look back on this episode. It has to be that we got Sebastian's true identity being Jonathan Christopher, the demon-blooded Shadowhunter. So there's that. Aside from that, let's move on to random questions. I do have a few, so let's jump right into that. First one is, how would Alec reach the runes on his back during a fight? First shot of Alec in the episode is him waking up shirtless in bed, back to us first. And you see a whole bunch of runes tagged all over his back, and while they look very nice on him, it makes you wonder if the runes are supposed to help them during battle. How exactly is he supposed to reach those certain back runes? Because it seems it's tricky. It's not like he can easily pull up his shirt in the front and do an activated rune on his stomach or on his arms or anything like that, but his back, it's very tricky. So I'm wondering, what was the strategic move in that regard? Another question. Has Jonathan always been charred because of the demon blood, or was it because he was burned due to an accident? I mean, I can't tell with supernatural elements involved if because he was experimented on demon blood, that means a side effect was having this burnt flesh appearance as his original face. But I guess we'll have to wait for some answers. But it would explain why he's taking another person's form through a glamour, maybe. But I'm wondering if this charred appearance is a permanent one for Jonathan, or if it's just a temporary one due to a setback or something. Third question. Will Jonathan keep the face of Sebastian Verlac, especially now that the real one is dead? I mean, if he does keep the face of Sebastian Verlac, that would mean that we still get Will Tudor portraying Jonathan, which I would love. But then I would also still want to see what Jonathan's original face actually looks like, if that makes any sense. I mean, Jonathan doesn't have to worry about Sebastian, the real one, coming out and exposing him now that he's killed him. But begs the question, I still want to know what Jonathan's real face is underneath all the burns and all that. So there is that. Plus, it also, before it was revealed that Sebastian Verlac was actually the face of Will Tudor, or Will Tudor was the actual face of Sebastian Verlac, it also had me wondering if Will Tudor was the face of Jonathan, and he just took the name Sebastian Verlac as an alias. But then when it showed the prison, then like, oh, that's not going to be the case unless it's someone else who's supposed to be Sebastian Verlac, and Jonathan and Will Tudor is a different face of it. But anyways, I'm confusing myself, so let's just move on with the next question, and that is, did Jace's parents miscarry before they had him? Valentine's answers gave the impression that they had a baby, yet lost them before they had Jace. So wonder if you picked up on that, wonder if that's actually true, or if I'm just misinterpreting Valentine's wording for it. But it does have me wondering what would have happened if Jace actually did grow up with a sibling, or if he actually had a blood sibling out there, in a sense that Clary does with Jonathan. So it's interesting in that respect to think about that. But next question. Was Daniel Quinn one of the vampires that wanted to be part of Simon's nest because it was a daylighter? I mentioned that question very early on in the video. Since he appeared with a female vampire, they never introduced their name, so it was a few episodes back, so I'm wondering if he's supposed to be the same vampire as well that kind of showed out of the blue at the Jade Wolf for Simon. So there's that. Another question. Did Raphael's hypnotism really work on Ollie? I'm really hoping she doesn't have this immunity thing, where it didn't work for her, kind of like with Edward's mind reading for Twilight not working with Bella. So I'm hoping that Ollie is fully hypnotized, or she can't remember anything Shadow World related, that, or at least in Simon's case. So I'm hoping there's that. I don't need her being an unknown immunity or unknown kink in the scheme of things. I don't know what I'm saying now. It's late when I'm recording right now, but we're almost done. Last question. Would the mundanes at the Bleeder Den that were so addicted for vampire venom, the vampires were vampires were of blood, would those mundanes be considered Yin-Fen addicts? Or could Yin-Fen addicts only be for Shadowhunters who get addicted on vampire venom? So there's that. Moving on though, predictions very quickly. This was really running longer than I thought, but the promo for 216 shows Simon inviting Maya to a small party back home. We also see the Institute rushing to find Valentine. We see the return of Robert telling Alec that the Clave is hiding something. We also see Clary creating a new rune that surprises Jace. Then we see Sebastian, aka Jonathan, tapping into some unknown power against Valentine. And then we see Alec worrying about something being wrong with Jace. It's a lot of things happening in that promo, but based off the synopsis for 216, once again, I got this off of, I believe off the synopsis and the promo link. So there's that. But the episode is directed by Paul Wesley, aka Stefan Salvatore from the Vampire Diaries. So that's going to be a cool one. But synopsis reads that with everything that Simon has gone through this past year, a family dinner for Yom Kippur, the Jewish Day of Atonement, poses as a real challenge. How can he come clean about being a vampire, and especially about what just happened to him, to his family? And if he's stressed out, what if he can't control his vampire urges? Looking to take care of this himself, Maya insists on helping him out whether he likes it or not. Meanwhile, Clary and Jace go on an unsanctioned mission and test out their newfound rune powers. Now, based off that synopsis, you get a whole bunch of a setup for Simon, and not very much on Clary and Jace, while the promo is kind of the reverse. You only see a little bit about Simon and Maya, and yet the rest of it's all about the Shadowhunters searching for Valentine. A lot's going to be happening in this episode, but they did release 3 clips already, so based off those promos, the first one shows Valentine trying to reason with Jonathan, and then it was revealed that Jonathan had a plan with Azazel to attack Isabel, so that was his way into the into the New York Institute and all our core characters. But he has no intention or no interest in the mortal instruments like Valentine does. Second clip shows Jace wanting to go search a cabin in Idris with Clary to find a clue on where Valentine is. Although Clary's kind of confused, saying that they're supposed to be searching for him in New York. And the third one shows Jace trying to talk with Clary, who keeps brushing it off. She doesn't want to talk about what happened in the Sealy Court to Jace, of all people. I don't think she's ready for it. And then shortly afterwards, we get Alec giving a report on the latest update on Valentine's escape to Jace and Clary after they join up with him and Isabel. So there's that. Any new questions off of all of that stuff I've just revealed for 216? Well, one question is that when Valentine is talking with Jonathan in the clip, why do I still see the circle rune on Valentine's neck? I mean, didn't Jace get rid of it during the whole de-runing in tonight's episode? Or is de-rooting just a deactivation of the rune and the rune is still present? But if that's the case, does that mean Luke went through a different de-runing, or did he go through a de-runing when he became a werewolf? Another confusing thing right there. But the last one I have is how long before everyone else realizes who Sebastian really is, that he is actually Clary's demon-blooded brother, Jonathan. And I believe that's it I have to say. So what did you guys think of the episode? What did you guys like about it? What do you think is going to happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, predictions about what you think is going to happen next. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. The link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all that good stuff, all found in one place, so go check it out. I'm a little behind at the moment, but I still keep up to date as best I can. But it's all found in one place, so it's easy access for you guys there. It's also connected to my WordPress account, which is a little more organized, but it's still a work in progress overall. So just keep that in mind and check it out. And I believe that's about it, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you come back next week to see what I have to say about the next episode. We are halfway through part 2 of season 2. So things are definitely going to be picking up a lot more. So I can't wait to see it. I hope you come back to see what I have to say about it. But until then, guys, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week, wherever you are. Bye for now.